All right, folks, welcome back into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones, and I can hear it outside my window. The leaves are rustling around. The wind's coming in. We did have a warm night yesterday, but fall is here. We are officially into fall, which means I guess the sports season doesn't lie. It's actually the fall sports season now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of was upset when I woke up this morning and I saw all the leaves and fall tweets and all that stuff, because the weather itself is decent, but that just means winter's on the way. So I don't know, not really the big leave fall type of guy. I know that it means football, sports season, and I'm with the sports aspect of it, but everything else, I'm just not with it, man. I can't get down.
No, I'm not a pumpkin spice latte guy. I'm not any latte type of guy myself. And everybody's fall's elite, yada yada this, yada yada that. Fall is like 2 weeks long where it's actually good, and then we get into winter. And before that, guess what? You're describing summer days. So your good fall days, or you get them all the time in the summer. So it is nice to play, a nice round of golf, wearing the sweater and the pants once a year, and I don't know, go up to Letchworth, get the leaves coloring, but I'm kind of with you. Fall, we could take it or leave it. I'd let summer run on for a little bit longer.
I'm right with you, because like you said, very seldom are you getting the 50 to 60 degree days where it's just perfect without any rain or anything like that, or with the crazy wind. And then mid-October, now we're dealing with Snidel saying, so we got a couple flurries on the way today. And it's like, so it's like, yeah, you're right. I don't need it at all.
Exactly. I'm looking at the schedule right now, or not the schedule, the weather forecast. Seems like we're going to luck out. It's going to get a little chilly on Friday for our football games, but no rain in the forecast. Saturday, get up to 64, no rain. We've been very lucky so far. We complain a lot about bad weather. We got to appreciate the good weather. We've gotten, at most, there was a couple drops, sprinkles on Friday, but other than that, we have been smooth sailing. So we're going to hope that continues into the rest of the high school football season as we continue out to cover these games. Now, speaking of last week, we had a big slate of games, a lot of interesting matchups, a lot of things that really kind of raised our eyebrows in last week. Not exact. A lot of these times we can, map out these games. We expect what's going to happen. Typically they do. Some weird things happened last week. Carl, what was kind of the big thing that really, the first thing that stood out to you from week 3 of the Section 5 high school football season?
It was the way and the manner that Victor beat Pittsburgh for me. We kind of figured coming into last week that, okay, both these teams are 1-1. Which team is going to take that jump and continue their season on the upward trajectory? And Pittsburgh got off to a great start, 7-0, and then the Blue Devils go 27 unanswered to take a 27-7 lead. I'm there the entire game. I'm not the entire game, the entire second half. And I'm like, all right, I know Victor is explosive. They can get things going. And the Blue Devils pulled out the Jackson Green stopper. They literally had a corner pressing him, and then another safety literally 10 yards behind him, and just made Pittsburgh play 10-on-9. It worked. I mean, they only gave up 14 points. So shout out to the coaching staff for putting together that game plan. But I got to give my kudos to the Blue Devils. They came to play. Sam Gotham ran for over 100 yards. And they went into Pittsburgh territory, and in front of a crowd that Pittsburgh, they can definitely bring. The student section is definitely enthusiastic, so that can be another element as well. But that was for sure for me. That was the game that stood out. I'm like, oh, Victor, that physical ball translates for sure.
Yeah, now Pittsburgh 1-2 on the season. I guess you could say the silver lining of that is it's not like they don't have the talent, obviously. It's just they got to figure out how to game plan, because, when you get a guy like Jackson Green and, they play 10-on-9, you either got to figure out how to, exploit that, or figure out ways to get Jackson Green still involved. So I guess that would be my silver lining on this slow start for Pittsburgh, is that they got the guys. And, if we come to week 7 and Jackson Green's figuring out a way to get 100 yards and they're, win their last 3 of the season, something like that, I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, I mean, similar to last year. I mean, everyone in Section 5 knew he was good last year, and they still figured out a way to get him the pill last year. So they'll figure it out. I assume so.
Yeah, my big game that I was at this weekend, Aquinas versus UPrep. Obviously it's the UPrep show, continues on. Their 3rd win in a row. And, obviously, UPrep is 3-0 on the season. They've beaten the top 3 teams. So Clearly well deserving of their 3-0 ranking. They're just grinding out close wins. McQuaid got a little blowouty early, then they got back, but Victor was a tough win. Aquinas, they had to play really tough, and nothing is super overwhelming at this point about UPrep. They're a very diverse attack. You got Christian running the ball last week. He had 3 touchdowns. This week it was more on the yardage side of things. He had a big day on the ground. He had 18 carries for 152 yards. Throwing the ball, Noah Hill, nothing super like wow. He just he's efficient. He gets the ball to his receivers. He just does his thing. He just makes the right read. Jules Russell, Tyrell Simmons, and Dakari Carter each had big touchdown receptions. And man, UPrep, they're just gonna, you gotta play a really strong game to beat them. It just takes 4 quarters to beat them, because UPrep, they have just so many guys where it's just really tough to slow them down. And so far, nobody's been able to slow them down so far this season.
And if you wanted to peg the teams who, hey, this is the teams that are going to give them the most trouble, you would say McQuaid, Aquinas, and obviously Victor, as we know now, is legit as well. Haven't been able to do so far. I don't know how that's going to boil down the season. Obviously, September 22nd is not going to be where the sectionals are played, but they're off to a good start in the division that's probably the toughest in Section 5. And, man, they got a who's who of guys you can get the ball to and say, go make a play.
And I did mention on the show last week, I got corrected. They are a charter school. They are a public school, but still, UPrep continues to figure out a way to get wins, things like that. And elsewhere around Section 5, we mentioned those 2 games. There were a lot of also interesting results. You had Schroeder blowing out Spencerport, who lost Cameron Mesh in that one. I just read from the Democrat and Chronicle, it was a hamstring injury on that first play of the game that knocked him out. This is through the Democrat and Chronicle's reporting. It seems like, from what I gather on the article, it's a hamstring injury that should be able to come back sometime this season. Just comes down to when you want to, test out that hamstring, things like that. But Schroeder with a surprising result. Hilton with another big win, 34-12 over Churchville Charli. The big story there, Rich Lapani getting it done for his 200th career win. Hilton, quietly a team that, we expected to do good things at the A1 level, dropping down from AA. They continue to do good. Canandaigua having to stress out a victory over Athena, 28-21. Not exactly the typical Canandaigua results we've been seeing so far this season. And then Brighton continues to be good after losing some key guys last year. Just a lot of games there that were all interesting. Carl, just kind of your biggest takeaway from some of those games that I mentioned right there.
It's Schroeder, for the simple fact that for the second time that we've called their highlights, they've had these like explosive long runs and passing catches. Torrance Washington, I got to give my man his flowers. I remember the first week we showed his highlights, long touchdown run. And then we showed us highlights this week, and it's the same case. Schroeder has some home run hitters on that team. They got some guys who give them the ball in space and they can go the distance. And as we all know, in football, those guys who can, any Bills fans now, we're all Bills fans playing the Dolphins this week. They got 2 of them. So everyone's in tune with that line of thinking. And Schroeder has a guy who is similar to that on the high school level. That was intriguing to me. And then also the Fairport and Penfield result. That was that I hadn't really been in tune with either team. You had seen, I think, Fairport in the past. You said they had played a tough game against RH, I believe, correct?
Yeah, they played them pretty competitively, yeah.
Yeah, and I get there in Penfield. They took it to them. On the road, I believe it was homecoming. Just shout out to Penfield for being able to get that result done. And then HFL doing HFL type things again. It was one of those games where I got a little bit more clarity of the Section 5 landscape, for sure.
And you mentioned Schroeder. I'm trying to pull up their schedule right now. For some reason, the Section 5 website is only giving me 3 games, but this still is going to make my point for me. Last year, this offense is seemingly caught on nowhere. Schroeder, over-under on their games were maybe 20 points, some of these games. They scored 16 points to beat Irondequoit. They scored 7 points to beat Thomas in a 7-6 grinded out game. And then they beat Schroeder 24-14. These, like I said, these are just the only 3 games that I can pull up on the Section 5 site right now. But it just tells the story that last year this was a team that, built around their defense, try and figure out a way to score some points. Now, I mean, Schroeder has been, throwing the ball all over the place. Like we mentioned, Spencer Ford did have that injury. But just another really strong effort from Schroeder. They're going to get tested next week or this upcoming week. We'll, of course, talk about it a little bit later in the show. But yeah, Schroeder, we were wondering, Class A has been moving around up and down, left and right. Schroeder certainly front and center of that conversation. None of us were at that game. Actually, we had a news photographer at that game, but we will certainly be at one of their games this week. So we talked about the boys soccer state rankings last week. We've got our first, the main event, the class or the state rankings for football coming out for the first time from the New York State Sports Writer Association. A lot of Section 5 teams well represented, a lot of interesting storylines coming out of these state rankings. Start off with Class AA, and obviously it's UPrep at the top, rewarded with the 8th overall ranking in the entire state. And as we always like to mention with this Class AA schools, the number 4 actually in the New York State in the NISFA, however you want to say it. So of the teams that are playing for that state championship, they're number 4. So UPrep clearly getting the attention of everybody around the state. And if you just, it's tough. I don't compile these rankings. It's tough to figure out who's good, who's that. When you just look at the schedule on paper, UPrep has been equally as impressive as they've been on the field so far.
I mean, based off of what I've seen so far and going off of what McQuaid did last year, I don't see why they couldn't do similar type things, I guess you can say, to McQuaid. And McQuaid, I believe, lost to Jamestown or Bennett, one of the two.
Bennett, yeah, Class AA.
In the Far West Regional last year. I think UPrep is on that same level of talent and they can pull out wins. Shout out to the Griffins, man. 4th in the state. That's nothing to sneeze at all.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it before, but just the way that they've been able to get done in these close games, a good sign to get already early in your season, to be able to grind out those wins, get those close results, show that your guys know how to close games. Because I didn't mention that Aquinas game. UPrep was up 2 touchdowns. I got there in the 4th quarter again, as I was also there in the first half. Aquinas scores a really nice touchdown, drives down the field. UPrep gets the ball back, maybe like 4 minutes to go, grinded out the clock, got first downs, eventually scored a touchdown, which made me stay around a little bit longer to see if anything crazy was going to happen. But UPrep, they're just good so far. Also receiving votes so far. You have Rush Henrietta, Victor, McQuaid, all of those teams with 2-1 records right now. Aquinas still looking for their first victory of the season, all close losses. So certainly, they're not going to be ignored in this conversation as well. But right now in Class AA, UPrep atop in Section 5. In Class A, 2 teams ranked. No surprise at who they are, especially at the very top. But Canandaigua at number 4, East at number 11. And, Carl, you've been able to see both of these teams played. Certainly Canandaigua gets the respect based off of what they've done the last couple of years. But if it's not in the wrong order, these teams are certainly right next to each other. And of course, they're going to play this week. But right now, your thoughts on Canandaigua's and East's state rankings so far?
I mean, Canandaigua, they're kind of like transitioning between some of the guys that they've had in the past who are studs, but they've also won every single game thus far. So you got to give them their kudos for, manning the ship, so to speak, in that way. But East, they got some guys, they got some dudes everywhere on the field. I mean, every time we call their highlight, I feel like it's a different kid. Whether it's Zamir Jackson, Anthony Diaz, it's a who's who of guys over there, Amari Young. I believe those 2 teams will figure out. I know it's kind of hard earlier in the season. I cut some writers some slack right now about who's who. Who like they're kind of like basing off last year.
Yeah, they've won like 30 Section 5 games in a row, and they're on the field. They're like, all right, let's just stick Canandaigua at top.
It would be a bit disrespectful to not include them in this ranking just based off what they've done in the past. But we'll find out real quick over the next few weeks or so how accurate, I guess, that order is.
Yeah, and Canandaigua's not quite in this sense, but they've kind of done this in the past where based off of previous results, what other teams have done, we've walked into a Canandaigua game and been like, all right, this one could be a close one. This one could be a really good game. And then Canandaigua just does Canandaigua type things, as we like to say. So we'll see what happens this week. In Class B, HFL taking the top spot amongst Section 5 teams. They are 9th overall in the state. Batavia right behind them at number 13. Carl, you finally got a chance to kind of see the beginning of an HFL blowout win. They have certainly, lived up to any expectations that they had coming up to the season.
I haven't seen the other 8 teams above HFL, so I'm not going to sit up here and make some outlandish proclamation. But I will say, it is hard-pressed for me to believe there are 8 teams better in Class B than HFL, and I mean that in all seriousness. That offense, whenever you get the chance to see them, they can run it. Matt Meacham is throwing the ball all around the field. Their defense can create some turnovers. We'll get a better indication of how great they are when they take on Batavia. I don't know when that game is, but I know they'll match up at some point. HFL is legit, man. Like they're legit. I'll leave it at that, man.
Yeah, that Batavia game coming up on October 14th. Batavia also a really impressive win over Monroe, 28-6. A team that we've seen has some really great players, has some explosive guys, can throw the ball around a little bit. A really strong statement win from Batavia after maybe not quite possessing their A game to start the year against Wayne, against some other results. Geneva and Palmac also receiving votes. Geneva at 3-0. They're going to get the next shot at HFL this weekend in a battle of undefeateds. And then taking a look at some of the smaller schools, in Class C, you've got Leroy, our top spot at number 3. You've got in Class D, you've got OAE at number 2. And then in 8-man, you've got Canisteo Greenwood, no longer the Red Jacket show anymore. Canisteo Greenwood at number 1. So you've got in Class C, Class D, Class 8-man. We have a team in the top 3 of all of those brackets here in Section 5.
Going back to OAE a little bit, their numbers and their box scores are ridiculous.
Pretty good.
So whoever's number 1, I want to see those box scores, because OAE, they light it up every single week, and it's not a diss to the other teams they're playing. I think it's just a shout out to how good and how talented that OAE ball club is for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I mean, they beat Geneseo 70-6, and I saw Geneseo. I mean, it's tough to get too impressed, a week 1 Class D matchup when you don't know who exactly the teams are. But I was like, all right, Geneseo's got some guys, whatever, things like that. And then it was 70-6. I mean, and they beat Avon 42-14. Avon, always a really strong team in recent years. They just know how to get it done. So yeah, OAE, continues. They had a nice run through the state playoffs last year. It seems like they're certainly going to be on their way to potentially doing something like that this year as well. Leroy, also number 3 in Class C. I don't think we've gotten a chance to see Leroy, but we got to make sure we get out there sometime soon.
Definitely.
Then the girls soccer rankings also came out for the first time. We haven't gotten a ton of class or girls soccer action. We're starting getting a little more on the other sports now that the Bills schedule is kind of normalizing a little bit. But top of the Class AA rankings in girls soccer for Section 5, Penfield at number 11. They're 6-0 in Section 5 play. Their only loss on the season to number 4 Clarence. So a strong start for the Patriots so far. Schroeder also at 18. They've been able to grind out 2 close ties to Spencerport. I'm always playing that defensive style of ball. Speaking of Spencerport, down in Class A, you've got Mendon at number 4. They've been grinding out a lot of close wins with 3 one-goal victories. And then Spencerport no longer at the tippy top of the ranks, just near the top of the ranks. Spencerport number 9, Athena 15, Churchville Chili number 18. Carl, just your initial impressions of the Class A and Class AA rankings in girls soccer.
You got to be Spencerport, right? Like this. Now, granted, I haven't been in Rochester for too long, but I've been here long enough, talked to enough people to know that death taxes and then Spencerport being really darn good at girls soccer. Just seeing them not as the top team in Section 5 was kind of a little bit of an eye opener. That just threw me for a loop, and I know that Schroeder's given them some tough games so far, and who knows where Spencerport ends up down the line. But when I looked at this earlier on, I was like, what? So that was definitely my initial takeaway.
Yeah, Spencerport last year, they lost a lot of players, especially on the attacking side. Talking to our main man, Paulie G, about the Spencerport. They're just they're waiting for that finishing touch for some of these players. Right now it's a diverse attack for Spenceport. You've got Kendall Mesh, Alina Solano, and my handwriting is not always as good as I wish it would be. As I look up this name again here, it's Liana Tata, each with 3 goals on the season so far. So right now they're getting it done with a lot of different players. Just waiting to, figure out exactly. I'm sure they're it's early in the season. They're moving some pieces around. They've got some new players in the lineup. Certainly they're not number 1 in Section 5 right now. I'm not putting my money on anybody else until they get knocked off. So that's just all we're going to say about that. In Class B, Palmac Red Raiders, number 3 in the state so far, led, of course, by the fantastic Maya Eichwood, who so far early on in the season, 22 goals and 10 assists right now for Miss Eichwood. She has been just dynamite for the Red Raiders in years past, and this year she is finding another group. Maya Eichwood, still just a junior, and she's putting up these type of numbers. Palmac has just destroyed all of their competition. They did only have 1 loss, and that was to Class A Sutherland, a 1-0 result. So Palmac, yeah.
22 goals, 7 games. Okay, that's
right now. The Section 5 side's a little bit more updated. They've got 9 games, so still, that's Let me make sure.
Over 3 points a game, still.
It's tough. That's over 2 goals a game. And their victories right now, they're outscoring their opponents on the season 50-3.
I think that's good. I don't know. I wasn't great at math, but I think that's pretty good.
It is good. They've also got a nice 1-0 win over Aquinas. That was their only game other than Sutherland that wasn't decided by the time they got the orange slices at halftime. So Palmac right now, really strong in Class B right now. We've also got Bath making a stake in their claim in Class B. They're still they're undefeated, 12th in the latest state rankings. And then we've also got some strong teams in Class C and D right now. Byron Burgeon, number 2 in the state, and Fillmore, number 2 in the state. So some other teams that could potentially make some runs here in the state tournament. And then moving on to our games of the week coming up, we kind of teased a couple of them. We also teased at the end of Football Frenzy last week. Class A was weird last week. Interesting things going on. We're going to get a lot of clarity in Class A this week. Carl, are you looking for your moment of clarity in Class A this week?
We talked about it a little earlier with the rankings. Canandaigua went east. Canandaigua was making the trek up to the city this weekend, Friday, I believe, at 6 to play that game. Canandaigua coming into the season, you did the story, fairly young team, a lot of young pieces, but they have a senior receiver who is making stuff happen, okay? Tashi Crockton, shout out to you for saving my highlight last week, because, boy, that was a highlight, all right? My man caught a little hitch, made a guy fall, a little 15-yard gain. He said, don't worry, I got more for you a little later. Same exact play. This time he takes it to the crib. Tashi Crockton, is helping this Canandaigua offense along while, they're still trying to figure things out as they are really young. And then on the other side, East, also very young, but they have a little bit more experience because they were forced to play a little bit more last year, and they've been explosive. They've had some guys who can put it up. They haven't played the toughest of schedules yet, so it'll be interesting to see how they play against a team with a little bit more star power and firepower. But, man, this will be the best team that either team sees thus far. I can't wait. It's right next door to us, so we definitely going to be there. That's my game of the week, and I'm definitely locked in.
Yeah, Crockton with 7 catches for 185 yards last week, 2 touchdowns. Also came up in the clutch for the Braves in that wild second half. Had a 40-yard reception, got them down to the 2-yard line. They were able to punch it in for that game-winning touchdown. So, we mentioned the young guys stepping up. Tashi Crockton finally get his moment in the spotlight as a senior. I talked to him in the beginning of the season. He was like, I'm ready to go. I've been waiting for this, and he's been ready for sure. And then my game of the week, kind of that's your game, A2 measuring stick. Mine's the A1 measuring stick. Schroeder versus Brighton, both undefeated on the season at 3-0. Both of these teams, it's going to come down to, I think, whose dynamic duo can kind of rise up the brightest. Drew Pagano last week, 5 total touchdowns at the quarterback position. You had Torrance Washington with a big game at the receiver position, as we mentioned. And then for Brighton, Tyler Martinovich at quarterback, Daniel Johnson at wide receiver. He was all over our highlights last week. One-handed catches, touchdowns to the tune of 7 receptions for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. As they were finally able to pull away from Gates Chilai. And then, you just look at the schedule coming up. Schroeder, they've passed all their tests so far. They beat Spencerport. They beat Hilton already this season. If they get past Brighton, it's going to be tough to find a loss for them on their season. So potentially Schroeder able to lock up at the number 1 spot in Class A1 with a win. Brighton hoping to have something to say about that.
I want to go back to Daniel Johnson a little bit. I don't know if you were there when he had the nice little one-handed catch. That's a dude with some swagger, and I like him. He on my radar. Man caught the 1 touchdown, looked right at me, didn't do nothing. I'm just like, oh, yeah, he locked in. Then he scored another touchdown, and Flex did something or pointed to me. I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's my guy from here on out. So whenever you're at the game, this game, Daniel Johnson, he's going to find you. He's going to find the camera, and he's going to make sure that he gets seen on Channel 8. So I like that kid a lot.
Yeah, we love our guys that find the camera. Evan Brock, Rush Henrietta, I believe Aquinas last year. I forget who it was for Aquinas, but somebody from just everybody. We love it when they know where the cameras are. But we also do appreciate when it happens right away. Sometimes it takes a while, yada yada. This we'd like to get the flex or the point on camera. Just do it quickly. We don't have a ton of time here. You can't wait 10 seconds to point the camera. I will just say that.
This is actually a fair point because Evan Brock did it. And I don't know if you were able to show it on TV because it took too long, right?
The one we finally were able to get on, but I kind of just had to mention it, like, all right, in 10 seconds, you're going to see the flex. Luckily, I had so many things I needed to talk about because Pittsburgh was getting down the field. So that gave me enough time to say all those things, but it didn't quite happen in the order that I wish it could have. But yeah, it seems like we're going to have a lot of flexing by somebody, and we're going to get some two potential sectional championship game previews this week. So, what more can you ask for that? I don't know. Good weather. That's what we can ask for. So hopefully that stays up. But that's going to do it for this week on the High School Huddle podcast. Once again, you can listen on Spotify. You can listen on Apple Podcasts. Listen on RochesterFirst.com. Watch it on YouTube. Tons of different ways to get a hold of the program. And as we mentioned before, the Bills schedule finally starting to normalize. So our days are going to be a little more normal. We're going to get some more features for you guys on News 8. We're going to get out to some more games on these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday games, Thursdays, where we're able to show some soccer, some volleyball, things like that. Oh, quick mention. Webster volleyball, huh?
Undefeated, 8-0. They got some guys. They're looking real good. Shout out to Griffin Monrad, 13 kills yesterday in the game against RH. And then Luka Switzits. I want to say Luka Switzits. I don't want to mess up this kid's name. Hold on. Here we go. Evan Lukasiewicz. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
My man also, he had 10 kills as well yesterday. Webster looking real good. They haven't dropped a set all year. So clearly, they might be the class of that A division. So I had to find a game yesterday. I said, you know what? Let me see the gap. My boys from Webster. They got it done.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but if they get Penfield, that's going to be one heck of a good game before playoffs start. But that'll do it for us. That'll do it. I can't even know how to end the show, so we're just going to end. Let's play the music. I'm the one who runs the music, so I'm going to start playing the music right now. He's Carl Jones. I'm AJ Feldman. It's time to break the High School Huddle. We will see you